And today, we're focusing on a group that just perfectly illustrates this conflict. Group 200.
Ah, yes, Group 200. A real crucible of sound.
And the reviewer titled this one with their typical flair. Tom Jones gets tangled up while Guns N' Roses are for the birds.
Hey, you gotta love the titles.
You really do. And what a mix in this group. Seriously eclectic. We've got rock excess, pure pop perfection, sheer vocal professionalism, and then this kind of ambient calm.
Quite the lineup.
The Contenders are Greatest Hits by Guns N' Roses, Tangled Up by Girls Aloud, a specific Sunday Express collection by Tom Jones, and Mylo Xyloto by Coldplay.
Wow. Okay. A truly fascinating collection. You've got decades, genres, everything thrown in there.
Oh, yeah.
So the critical question for this group, the one that decides who moves on and who gets cut in the album quest, is what exactly did Green Rocks prioritize?
Was it the flow? Was it genre authenticity? Or maybe just sheer technical quality?
Let's find out. We start, perhaps controversially, with the rock legends.
Okay, so let's dive straight into the takedown. Guns N' Roses' Greatest Hits. This album comes in carrying immense cultural weight, right? But it gets finalized almost immediately. And not because the songs aren't great, but because of its structural failure.
Yeah, the reviewer flags this central criticism right from the get-go. Musical bloat.
Musical bloat. Okay.
And this is where the source material gets really delightfully specific. It uses this very memorable, very relatable analogy to really anchor what they mean by structural failure. Apparently, the review is written around the holidays.
Okay, I think I know where this is going.
Yep. The reviewer compares listening to this compilation to that awful, agonizing physical discomfort you sometimes feel on, say, Christmas Day.
Oh, yeah. That moment.
No.
When you realize you've eaten way too much, like your own body weight in turkey, pigs in blankets, roast potatoes.
Don't forget the Quality Street.
Oh, God, yeah, and then the compulsory chocolate orange, half the Quality Street tin, maybe a bit of the cheese board you didn't really want. It's that moment of just profound, painful excess. You feel sick.
Precisely that feeling. The source material argues that this Guns N' Roses' Greatest Hits album, even though it's packed with amazing songs, quality-wise, it delivers that identical feeling, that fatty, excessive musical bloat. It's just too much good stuff, but badly put together.
Okay, but let's break that down for the listener. How does that physical discomfort translate musically? What makes it feel bloated?
Well, it's the sheer length of these iconic tracks, just stacked one after the other, end to end, coupled with a complete lack of sequencing subtlety. You get 6 minutes of Paradise City, okay, great track. But then it's immediately followed by 7 minutes of Civil War, and then boom, an astonishing 8 minutes of the epic November Rain.
Wow. Back to back like that.
Back to back. Structurally, the reviewer argues that's just a crime against pacing. They say the people who compiled this track list, and this is crucial, it was a compilation team, not the band themselves.
Oh.
They were, quote, greedy as hell. They seemed intent on just jamming every single massive, sprawling power ballad and every lengthy jam session into one single listening experience, forcing the whole caboodle down your throat in one sitting. That's the phrase used.
Right. And this really highlights one of the core principles, maybe a non-negotiable one, of this whole album quest, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Flow matters, maybe even more than the sheer quality of individual tracks.
Exactly. You could have 3 of the greatest rock anthems ever written, but if you just slap them together back to back in this relentless, like 21-minute slab of sound, the experience itself fails. It actually minimizes the impact of the songs because the listener just never gets a moment to breathe, to reset.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. And that failure of sequencing, that leads directly to what Green Rocks calls their pet hate compilation records, particularly those where the original band didn't have control over the song choices.
Right. The argument is almost ideological, isn't it?
Completely. An album, in this view, should be a deliberate, cohesive statement, a compilation chosen by a record label. That's seen as primarily a marketing exercise, not really an artistic one.
Okay, I have to push back just a little bit here, though. Is it really fair to penalize GNR themselves? I mean, this is a band whose output was often famously messy, lots of delays. Isn't the label just making the best possible commercial package they can?
Well, within the specific rules and aims of the album quest, yes, it seems absolutely fair, according to Green Rocks. The quest is hunting for the best album of all time.
True.
So if the reviewer determines that listening to this compilation as, say, your very first GNR experience would fundamentally misrepresent the raw, aggressive energy the band was known for early on, well, then it fails the integrity test. Doesn't tell a coherent story about the band.
Which brings us neatly to the missing pieces. The reviewer clearly knows Guns N' Roses well, and they're looking for something specific that isn't here.
Yeah, they want that sharp, quick burst of aggressive rock, the stuff that really defined their early energy.
Okay.
And they list the notable absences, tracks like Night Train, Out to Get Me, It's So Easy, fast, punchy tracks. Without those quick, adrenaline-fueled numbers sprinkled in between the big epics, the whole package just feels saggy, bloated, weighted down by its own grandiosity.
And this whole structural problem, this bloat, it feeds right into what you called the devastating cover band question.
Yeah, this was a sharp critique. The reviewer seems genuinely annoyed by the sheer number of cover songs included on this greatest hits.
Like Live and Let Die.
Exactly. And others, too. It leads to this really powerful attack on the band's identity as presented by this album. Greenstrarock states flatly that a listener would be, quote, forgiven for mistaking Guns N' Roses as a cover band from this album alone.
Wow, that's harsh.
It is harsh. It suggests the curation focuses too much on their ability to interpret other people's songs rather than showcasing the raw, original genius of tracks like, Welcome to the Jungle. It actually dilutes their legacy, according to this view.
So to be judged not on your own iconic originals, but on a collection that inadvertently makes you look like some kind of tribute act.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a heavy sentence in an album quest.
Definitely. So ultimately, GNR suffers here because of bad packaging, that unforgivable length and lack of flow, and the fact it wasn't curated by the artists themselves. All of this condemns its position in Group 200, despite, the undeniable quality of many of the songs taken individually.
It's a tough verdict.
And that whole critical segment, it closes with this final, almost dismissive little jab at the end of the album. The reviewer notes that the last 4 tracks seem utterly unessential.
Ouch. Unessential.
Yeah, that feeling of leftovers, that lack of essentiality, it just perfectly encapsulates the whole idea of bloat. It didn't need to be there.
Okay, so if too much excessive rock makes the reviewer feel physically sick, maybe they prefer music that acts more like sonic medicine. Let's switch gears completely now. We're moving from that excessive Christmas dinner feeling to the therapeutic calm of Mylo, Xyloto by Coldplay.
Yes, a very different beast.
And this album offers an entirely different kind of critique, doesn't it? It seems to be rooted much more in atmosphere and mood.
This is actually a really remarkable segment of the review because Greenstrarock starts by actively confessing their prior negative bias towards Coldplay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they admit having a history with the band, saying they previously found them more than a bit bland. They even specifically mention listening to A Rush of Blood to the Head back in the day and feeling the band still had a way to go.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty big admission, especially given Coldplay's status. I mean, they're objectively one of the most successful bands of the last 15 years, arguably more.
Absolutely massive.
So acknowledging that the earlier, hugely successful work didn't click for them personally, that sets up the question. Why the dramatic shift in perception for Mylo Xyloto? What changed?
Well, it seems this album succeeded with the reviewer because it tapped into a very specific need, an ambient or atmospheric requirement they had. It's not about high-octane energy here. It's purely about mood.
Okay.
They describe Mylo Xyloto as inherently relaxing, highly ambient, and crucially, something that specifically achieves the goal of chilling me out. So it serves a functional purpose that the GNR album, with its bloat, completely failed to achieve.
Right, so GNR was too much this is. Just right, in terms of relaxational.
Sort of, yeah. And it apparently manages to maintain this specific atmosphere even when the songs get bigger, more anthemic.
Interesting. Because Coldplay does anthems, right?
Oh, yeah. Even tracks you might think of as typical Coldplay stadium fillers like Paradise or that big duet Princess of China with Rihanna, which is pretty high profile. Even those seem to come across as part of this unified, laid-back milieu, as the reviewer puts it. They don't break the mood, they just enhance it with a bit more scale.
So how does it achieve that? Is it the production?
It seems to be. It's the production values, the layering, that really facilitate this feeling. When you talk about musical texture, Mylo Xyloto apparently excels at creating a kind of soundscape rather than just a sequence of distinct songs.
Okay.
Think about the heavy use of echo, maybe long reverb trails, those subtle, often synthetic-sounding orchestral layers. It all makes the music feel quite vast, but also somehow weightless.
And this sense of vastness, this atmosphere, it leads to some really specific, almost surreal auditory imagery that Greenstrokes uses.
Yes, this is where it gets quite poetic, actually.
The reviewer describes the experience of listening to the album as curiously sounding a bit like you're trapped in a high-domed atrium.
An atrium. That's such a fascinating, precise observation, isn't it?
Not is. What does that even evoke?
Well, an atrium is usually a huge, often glass-domed central space in a building, right? Like a modern museum foyer or maybe a big botanical conservatory. So that analogy suggests the music has this massive sonic space, high ceilings, a lot of clarity, but also maybe a sense of enclosure or perhaps introspection. It's big, but it's contained.
Big but contained, okay.
Yeah.
And the imagery doesn't stop there. It gets even more specific with the natural world references.
Right, which further reinforces this sort of therapeutic, contained atmosphere. They characterize the overall feel as having a very birdy feel to it.
A birdie feel.
Yeah, birdie. And then they call the whole album a fresh sort of warbling avifauna of an album.
Avifauna. Okay, they didn't just say birds. They said avifauna.
Exactly. And avifauna is key here. It's not just, random bird calls. It refers to the collective bird life of a specific region or habitat. So it implies this detailed, organic-sounding soundscape within that high-domed space we just talked about. It's like sonic nature, but maybe synthesized or processed.
Right. So the music sounds intricate, layered, maybe a bit high-pitched or shimmering, reminiscent of woodwind instruments or perhaps synthesized bird calls, all blending into this larger ambient backdrop.
That seems to be the interpretation, yeah. It's quite unique imagery.
So Mylo's Xyloto essentially wins the reviewer over, not through, perfect rock structure or aggression, but through its ability to establish this really unique ambient nature-adjacent atmosphere that serves a specific emotional function for them. It provides sonic calm.
Which is a massive victory for atmosphere over, say, traditional song structure or raw energy in this particular comparison.
Wholly different criteria being applied compared to GNR.
Completely. And that atmospheric victory was enough. It was explicitly confirmed in the review as sneaking ahead of the structurally flawed Guns N' Roses' greatest hits in the final ranking.
Wow.
It offered something GNR didn't. A coherent, functional, and for this reviewer, aesthetically pleasing listening experience from start to finish.
Okay, moving on. Now we tackle the case of the consummate professional who, despite that professionalism, suffers a kind of ideological defeat in this quest. We're shifting from the ambient chill of Coldplay to the sheer vocal power of Tom Jones, specifically in his Sunday Express collection.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. It's a case where immense talent is fully acknowledged, openly praised even, but ultimately it's deemed insufficient for the album to rank highly.
Right. And before we get into the criticisms, we really have to stress that the reviewer does acknowledge the raw ability, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Greenstrokes makes it unequivocally clear. Tom Jones is described as the consummate professional, a vocal powerhouse. His voice could blow you head clean off, capable of hitting any note you ask. The talent itself is presented as beyond reproach.
Okay, so the voice is incredible, but as we're learning, the album quest isn't just a singing competition, is it?
Not at all. It's about the album's integrity, its packaging, its overall statement.
And the reviewer immediately singles out a specific track as being a drawback, regardless of how well it's sung. Delilah.
Yeah, Delilah gets mentioned. It's obviously an iconic Tom Jones song, but perhaps for this reviewer, it symbolizes a certain style, maybe theatrical, maybe a bit overwrought, that they find inherently problematic in this context.
And just like the Guns N' Roses album, this Tom Jones collection suffers from the compilation issue again, right?
Yeah.
But maybe even more so.
Yes, it gets magnified here because of the content itself. The source material explicitly notes that this particular album contains even more covers than the GNR album.
Wow, okay.
And when you consider that the quest seems to prioritize originality quite highly, that's already a pretty heavy penalty against it.
The irony there is quite thick, isn't it? Two albums in the same group getting penalized for interpreting other people's work.
It is. But the Tom Jones effort seems to suffer even more, not just because of the quantity of covers, but because of the style of the arrangements.
Okay, so it's not just that he's doing covers, it's how he's doing them.
That seems to be the ideological critique here. The fatal flaw, according to Greenstrokes, is the style, the packaging, what they term cabaret sterility.
Cabaret sterility.
The description is that Tom Jones booms out cabaret lounge bar style versions of these tracks.
Right. Let's try and define that a bit more for the listener. What does cabaret sterility actually mean in musical terms here? What would you hear?
Well, it likely means the arrangements are really smoothed out. polished to a high shine, often relying heavily on, big polished brass sections, maybe lush string arrangements, very professional big band backing tracks.
Ah.
All really designed primarily to showcase that immense vocal projection.
Oh.
Rather than focusing on, say, the raw instrumental interplay or the grit of the original song, the reviewer argues this kind of hyper-professional performance tends to overpower the rest of the instrumentalists. The focus is entirely on the singer.
So the music itself becomes almost secondary, just a vehicle purely for the voice. And in doing that, it strips away the essential, maybe rebellious grit or edge, or the instrumental chaos, even, that might have defined the original track.
Exactly that. The reviewer clearly sees it as a transformation, taking something potentially raw or rebellious and turning it into, cruise ship comfort entertainment. It's prioritizing performance polish over musical purity or authenticity.
And this becomes really obvious when Jones covers actual rock classics.
Yeah, the source lists some powerful examples of this transformation in action. Elvis Presley's Hound Dog and Jerry Lee Lewis's Great Balls of Fire.
Wow. Those are absolute cornerstones of raw, early, aggressive rock and roll. Primal stuff.
Absolutely. And in covering these tracks, the reviewer delivers the knockout blow, stating that Tom Jones manages to suck dry any rebellious rock attitude and replace it with cruise ship-style sterility.
Oof. It's about as damning as it gets in this quest, I imagine.
It really is. The original spirit of the song, the very reason it was rebellious or exciting, is seen as being murdered by professional polish, smoothed away.
Okay, again, I feel I have to interject and maybe question the reviewer's criteria just a little. Isn't this incredibly subjective? It almost feels like Greenster Rocks is penalizing Tom Jones for being too good a singer, or too professional for polishing something they personally believe should remain rough and raw.
And that is precisely the kind of tension that this album quest seems to thrive on. Greenster Rocks is clearly establishing a principle here. For an album to be truly great, in their view, it must retain its ideological purity, its authenticity.
Right.
The quest is actively seeking that authenticity. So Jones's album, while vocally spectacular, is judged as being ideologically compromised. It's seen as attempting to make rebellious rock palatable, safe even, for a more middle-of-the-road audience. And that specific transformation, in the context of finding the best album, is deemed a fatal flaw.
So if the arrangement fundamentally changes, or as they put it, sucks dry the original spirit of the music, then it doesn't matter how good the vocals are. The record fails the vibe check, essentially.
That seems to be exactly it. It ensures its place right at the very bottom of Group 200.
Despite the voice.
Despite the incredible voice, the verdict is unambiguous. Despite possessing a monumental talent and undeniable professionalism, the collection's style is dismissed as, quote, not my cup of tea at all, I'm afraid. That seals its elimination. The ideological conflict between vocal polish and rock and roll purity was decided decisively, and purity won.
All right, now for the real shocker. The surprise winner of Group 200. After enduring bloated rock excess and sterile cabaret interpretations, the reviewer finds salvation, apparently, in what they call a surprisingly delightful pop album.
Yes, the source of wall-to-wall pop rectitude.
Pop rectitude. It's Girls Aloud's Tangled Up.
This placement really is the biggest surprise of the group, isn't it? It completely challenges any notion that, established rock legends or vocal titans should automatically advance over contemporary pop.
Absolutely.
The reviewer finds genuine, unadulterated satisfaction in what they consider to be pure, functional pop music. Music that fulfills its own promises perfectly.
Okay, let's pause there and try to define that praise a bit more. Pop rectitude. What does that actually mean in Greenster Rocks' critical lexicon? What are they valuing here?
While we contrast it with the failures of the other albums in the group, it starts to become clearer. GNR failed because it didn't adhere to its own genre's standards for flow and structure, right? It was bloated.
Right.
Tom Jones failed in this view because he tried to make rock music into something else cabaret. So pop rectitude seems to mean that Tangled Up adheres perfectly to its own internal contemporary pop standards.
Or
Things like incredibly catchy hooks, perfect rhythm, flawless modern production. It's pop music done absolutely right on its own terms without any apologies or attempts to be something more serious or profound than it is. It's honest about what it is.
Okay, honest and well-executed pop praise. And the praise seems deeply rooted in the technical execution, particularly the production values.
Yeah.
It's a 2007 release, right?
Yeah, 2007. And the praise focuses specifically on the first half of the album, which was largely produced by the production house Xenomania, who were, huge at the time.
Right, Xenomania had a very distinct sound.
They did. And the production values on Tangled Up are described by the reviewer as modern and solid. The vocals are praised specifically as being crisp as a snowy morning.
Crisp as a snowy morning. That's evocative. What does that mean musically?
Well, knowing Xenomania's style, crisp probably implies things like ultra-tight compression on the vocals and drums, maybe highly polished, possibly gated reverb on the synth drums, intricate layering of electronic sounds, all creating this immediate, kinetic, very clean energy.
So a real attention to sonic detail and precision.
Exactly. A level of sonic precision that was fundamentally lacking in, say, the messy GNR compilation.
And the reviewer points to specific tracks as examples of this pop-perfect production.
Yes, they list several. Call the Shots is singled out, apparently lauded for its structure, but also Close to Love, Sexy, No No No, Girl Overboard, and Can't Speak French. These aren't just seen as filler tracks. They're identified as pillars of this precision-engineered pop sound.
Okay? And then there's this really interesting observation the reviewer makes about the group members themselves, something that might normally be a criticism, but here it's kind of flipped into a positive.
Yeah, this is fascinating. They admit, quote, I can't really tell the girls apart because they sound very similar.
Which sounds like an odd compliment, right? It suggests a lack of distinct vocal personalities, especially when you compare it to the sheer monumentalism of Tom Jones's voice.
It does sound odd initially, but the reviewer immediately turns it into a technical advantage. They concede that this vocal similarity probably makes their harmonies even better.
Ah, okay, so the focus shifts completely. It moves away from individual star power, which was actually part of Tom Jones's downfall in this review, and shifts towards the collective sound, the engineering, the resulting perfect musical texture.
Precisely. The group's vocal uniformity is seen as enhancing the blend, making the production the true star of the show.
So it sounds less like a review celebrating a girl band and more like a high-level appreciation of sonic engineering and team synchronization, like praising a well-oiled machine.
That's a great way to put it. They seem to value the flawless execution of a specific pop design. The album is viewed as a machine built for delivering pop satisfaction, and it runs incredibly smoothly, which contrasts starkly with the GNR album, which was maybe an over-engineered machine that ultimately broke down from its own weight and poor assembly.
And this satisfying texture, this perfect execution, it leads to the ultimate justification for its #1 ranking in the group.
Yeah.
The personal liberation factor. It fulfills an emotional need for the reviewer.
Yes, that seems to be the clincher. The reviewer concludes by admitting there's an essential, occasional need to just liberate yourself and shower your soul in girly pop. It's a clear acknowledgement of pop music's essential, perhaps unpretentious, role in providing emotional release and immediate enjoyment, something that neither the bloated rock compilation nor the sterile cabaret interpretations could offer in this context. It was honest about its intentions, and it delivered.
And they seal the deal with a clever reference to one of the track titles, right? To cement the decision.
They do, perfectly summarizing the verdict.
Ah,
Maybe this is just a fling, baby, but it turns out that Girls Aloud call the shots in this group.
brilliant. So, Girls Aloud are the undisputed winners of Group 200. A complete victory, it seems, for purity of genre execution and flawless production meeting a specific listener need.
So there we have it. We've gone through the detailed assessment of this high stakes and, let's face it, highly controversial round of the album quest. The final ranking, which seems derived from Greens to Rocks' unique blend of personal taste, ideological commitment to flow, and the technical quality of the arrangement and production, well, it's now confirmed.
Okay, let's walk through those final results one last time. It really highlights the dramatic eliminations and the surprising survivors.
Absolutely. So in fourth place, eliminated entirely from the album quest, we have the Tom Jones Sunday Express collection.
Right. Penalized despite that incredible voice.
Yes, penalized due to what the reviewer saw as its ideological failure,
Yeah.
that cruise ship sterility and the excessive style compromising covers.
Okay, and in third place, also eliminated.
Guns N' Roses' greatest hits. Penalized very heavily for structural failure, suffering from that musical bloat, a complete lack of flow, and the critical flaw in this quest's rules of non-band involvement in the track listing. The packaging essentially failed the product.
It really was about the package there.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Which means the two albums that successfully navigate Group 200 and progress through to round 2 are...
Drumroll.
In second place, Mylo's Xyloto by Coldplay. Celebrated for its unique ambient quality, the success of its Avafana chill factor, and its ability to create a consistent therapeutic atmosphere throughout.
Atmosphere wins the day there. And of course, in first place, the surprising but decisive victor.
Tangled Up by Girls Aloud. Lauded for its wall-to-wall pop rectitude, that crisp production, and crucially, its ability to deliver genuine emotional liberation through pop-perfect execution.
So what does this particular Album Quest review really teach you as someone listening and trying to synthesize this information? What are the big takeaways about Green Starox's system?
Well, it shows that the system prioritizes several critical criteria that clearly override things like sheer commercial success or just big name recognition. This is a system seemingly built on, well, intellectual honesty, perhaps, and certainly subjective integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. The main takeaways seem pretty clear from this group. Firstly, originality matters, meaning fewer covers, and a sound that represents the band's core, uncompromised identity.
Check.
Secondly, excellent flow is paramount, meaning no structural musical bloat, proper sequencing. And thirdly, maybe most interestingly, the album needs to fulfill a specific emotional or atmospheric need for the listener, whether that's providing ambient calm, like Coldplay, or, in the case of Girls Aloud, delivering honest, liberating pop.
And what's truly fascinating looking back at this group is how often the most biting critique isn't actually focused on the inherent talent of the musicians involved.
Yeah.
I mean, that talent was openly acknowledged for both GNR and Tom Jones.
Right.
But the focus was almost entirely on the packaging, the curation of the album as a cohesive, ideologically sound experience. If the package fails that purity test, the album fails in the quest, regardless of the star power or the individual song quality.
It really forces us, and you listening, to maybe redefine what the criteria for a great album truly are.
Right.
Is it just a collection of brilliant songs thrown together? Or does it absolutely have to be a perfectly curated, cohesive journey, something perhaps only the original artist or producer adhering to very specific artistic principles could actually approve?
We've successfully, I think, synthesized the core arguments and the unique methodology behind this highly specific Group 200 review. We now understand why, according to this system, a compilation featuring some of the most iconic rock music ever recorded could possibly be beaten by a, 2007 pop album.
It's quite the outcome. Thank you for joining us on this particular section of the ongoing album quest. Now, before we wrap up, we really want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Something raised by the source material itself for you to mull over.
Yeah, think about this. If compilations are inherently flawed, as this review strongly suggests, because of their typical lack of direct artist involvement and their often poor structural flow problems highlighted in both the GNR and Tom Jones critiques, then does an official greatest hits album, however good the songs are, ever truly deserve to be ranked among the very best original studio albums in a quest like this?
That's a really good question.
If an album's ultimate integrity is defined, at least partly, by the artist's deliberate sequencing and intention, can a record label, acting essentially as a curator after the fact, ever successfully define that integrity for them in a way that satisfies a quest for the best album?
It raises a really fundamental question about how we define the very concept of an album when we embark on a comprehensive search for the greatest of all time. Something to definitely chew on until our next deep dive into the quest.